Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you are new here, welcome. My name is Nicole and I make bookish related content once a week on the internet. If this video is something you enjoy, please feel free to check out my other videos and hit that subscribe button. It would be awesome if you could stay. So today's video, as you guys can see from the title, we are bringing in the third installment of the Overhyped or Not author series. So I have previously done, I think, 2 videos. I've done it on Colleen Hoover and also on Tessa Bailey. I will link those 2 videos down below if you guys enjoy this video and you want to check out the other videos I've done in this series. Please feel free to check the description box. The links will be down there. So basically in this series, I pull a popular author that I have read and I basically let you guys know if I think that they're overhyped or not. Do I think their books are good? Do I think they're worth the hype that the author has? So today we're going to focus on Emily Henry. If you've seen any of my videos where I talk about her books, you're going to know what my answer is. I don't like to be clickbaity, so I tell you guys pretty much from the get-go whether I think the author is overhyped or not. I then go into, I want to say deep dive, but it ain't a deep dive. We go into a little shallow dive on all of the books that that author has released and I've read, or all of the books of theirs that I've read, but I may not have read all of their back catalogue because it depends on whether I like the author or not. And then at the end of the video, I tell you guys which of their books I think are worth reading and which ones I think are not worth reading. But we're going to do a different take on that concept in today's video. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments down below which out of Emily Henry's 5 books is your favorite. Emily Henry is an author that I have wanted to do this video on since I started this series, and I thought the timing was fitting because obviously Emily Henry has just released her 5th novel, Funny Story. I thought this would be a great time for me to sit down and discuss all of her novels, especially if there are people out there who haven't read them and don't know whether they're worth picking up or not. So I thought, let's just share my opinions on the internet on this. To straight up begin with, do I think Emily Henry is overhyped? I surely fucking don't. I think that she is appropriately hyped and she deserves all of the respect and recognition that she gets. She is one of my favorite authors. So am I going to be biased in this video? Most likely yes, because I have rated, I think, all of her books 5 stars. I will put a disclaimer right here. I am really bad at rating books, and I'm even worse at rating books than my favorite authors. I would like to say that I do not think that all 5 of her books are actually 5-star reads for me. I'm going to do my best to be honest with myself and you guys and be like whether or not I think this book is actually 5 stars. I'm not going to do at the end of this video a you should read this book, you shouldn't read that book. I think all of her books are worth reading, but I thought it would be more fun for me to rank her books and let you know which is my least favorite and which is my favorite book by her. So we're going to do that instead. I should tell you why I think she's not overhyped. I have been reading her books since just before Book Lovers came out. I just find the way that she writes, her writing style is beautiful. It is effortless. I don't know if she feels like when she's writing books, if it feels effortless. When I read them, I feel like, wow, she didn't have to try. This came so easy to her and it gels so well with my brain and it is beautiful. I think that her characters are really well written. I think that they all have realistic and genuine flaws. I know that it's so easy for people to connect with her stories and people can see themselves in her characters. I know that I definitely have. She makes you laugh, she makes you cry, she makes you smile, and I just think she does a really beautiful job at writing about love and life and what it means to be human. And I love her books. Her characters are great. I love that they're flawed. I love her love stories, and that's all I really have to say. I don't think she's overhyped. For me, she's not. Everyone loves her books and I think that is correct. I think that's right. She's not an overhyped author for me. I think she's fantastic. I will read anything this woman puts out and I get excited every time she announces a new book. I actually have multiple editions of her books, as you can see up there. So I do actually have her first 3 books in the US edition. I would have picked up Happy Place in the US edition. However, they decided to bring it out in hardcover, which they also did with Funny Story. So I've had to pick Funny Story and Happy Place up in the Australian/UK large paperbacks. So they clearly, as you could see from my thumbnail, these bad boys don't even match. Like there's nothing going on. They're like, they don't match, they're different heights. I am aware that Happy Place has released in the US in the paperback to match. I just haven't picked it up yet, but I am gonna get there. I then also, as you can see right here, have the Afterlight / Illumicrate special editions of the books. Yes, I have pre-ordered Happy Place at the time that I'm filming this. Today's the 1st of May. It hasn't shipped yet. I will, yes, be doing an unboxing because I have an unboxing video for all of these. So if I remember to link them, I also will if you're interested in checking out the special editions I have of her books. So yeah, I have multiple editions. I love her stories. I love her books. I like to have them on my shelf. They look pretty. I own the US editions because I think they look much nicer. But anyway, let's just get in talking about all of her books. I am going to talk about them in release date, which is also the order that I have read them in. So let's just get straight into talking about the books, and then at the end I will rate them. I'm going to do my best to not make it obvious as to what my rankings are going to be before we get to the end of the video. The first book I read of hers was Beach Read. I really just want to say that this is a book that I rated higher than I probably should have. I'm pretty sure I rated all of these 5 stars, and like I said, not all of them should have been 5 stars, and I will in my rankings let you know what I think they should be. I'm going to be honest, I don't remember a whole lot about Beach Read, which is probably going to be a massive hint as to where I'm putting this book in my rankings. So I'm going to read the back and hopefully it'll jog my memory. But we focused on August and January. Immediately have flashbacks of disliking that name. Oh, sorry, it's Augustus. I think I called him August. Augustus is an acclaimed author of literary fiction, and January writes best-selling romance. So when she pens A Happily Ever After, he kills off his entire cast. They're basically polar opposites, and they have nothing in common except for the fact that they're going to be spending 3 months in their respective beach houses as neighbors, and they both have writer's block. They just don't get along. They've got a history that's slowly revealed to you throughout the course of the novel. I've read a book very similar to this called The Roughest Draft, which in my opinion I think does it better than Beach Read did it. Basically, January, from memory, her partner slash fiance is like her agent, and he's very controlling. I didn't like him. He was a dick. Augustus and January, they end up striking a deal, coming together, and they basically go to help each other get out of their respective writer's block. They challenge each other to write a story in the other person's preferred genre. So that means Augustus is going to spend the summer writing something happy, and January will pen the next great American novel. In order to help inspire them to write in this genre, they take each other on little field trips. So January takes him on field trips worthy of any rom-com montage, and he'll take her to interview surviving members of a backwoods death cult. And the aim is that they're going to write this book in 3 months. Over the course of the novel, they do fall in love. You find out their history. I do think that this is a little bit of a second chance romance, and I wanted it to just have a little bit more. Augustus, I don't feel like I really liked him. I just felt like he had like a stick up his ass. He was a little bit pretentious. I didn't really like the way he treated January at times and the way he spoke about people, and he was a bit... I felt like he came across as like his genre was better than other people's genre, and no, I don't want to write this like light, fluffy, you know, romance novel. And that just annoyed me because I really love romance novels, so I didn't like him and his opinions. January, from memory, I think I found her to be a little bit of a pushover, and I didn't really like that, especially with her fiance. So they were mostly my main issues with them as people. That's kind of all I really remember about it. I just know that I didn't like January's partner, and that I felt like the book could have been better executed than it was. I wasn't a massive fan of Augustus and January. There was just something about them that I just couldn't connect with the story. And that's what I'm going to say about this one, because I've made it sound like it's a terrible book, but it's not. And then the second book of Emily Henry's that I picked up was People We Meet on Vacation. For anyone that's not in the US, in the UK and Australia, it's called You and Me on Vacation. Yeah, it's real badly sun damaged. It's supposed to be orange and it's yellow. I don't take care of my books. I think that this is a book that people don't tend to really enjoy of Emily Henry's, and I really quite like it. I thought it was fantastic. This was obviously a 5-star read for me. We focus on Poppy and Alex, who have nothing in common. She's a wild child. He is a straight-laced, khaki-wearing dude. She has wanderlust, always wants to travel and be on the go. He just wants to stay at home with a book. Sounds right up my alley, my kind of dude. And despite all of their differences, they've been best friends since college. But for the last decade, they have lived apart. So once a year over the summer, she comes back and they spend a week-long vacation together, because she's normally in New York and he is normally back in their small hometown. And this is what they did up until about 2 years ago, when they had a vacation together, and things did not go very well, and they haven't really spoken since then. They haven't taken any vacations together, and Poppy's life is just in a little bit of a rut, and she basically goes back to the last place where she was happy. And she knows that it was on that final trip with Alex. She decides him to go on another week-long vacation with her, and for whatever reason, he agrees. So she basically has a week to fix what went wrong in their vacation and just fix their friendship. And I really liked this one because you go from being in the present tense scenario is what's currently going on with them, and then you do like a flashback to what happened on that ill-fated vacation and what led to them not speaking. And it was like so obvious that they were in love with one another and that's what had gone wrong. I just really loved how well it was written. I loved Alex and Poppy. I know a lot of people just didn't like this one, but I loved the flashbacks. I thought the way that it was written and it was intertwined was really well done, and I was just hanging on and wanting more and more and more from this book, and she delivered, and I had a fantastic time with it. I thought it was great, and I thought Alex and Poppy were great, and I couldn't help just like rooting for them and like wanting them to get together, and it was great. I had a great time with this one. I really liked both Poppy and Alex as characters. I feel like the blurb really captured who they are quite well. I thought Alex was really sweet and adorable, and I feel like they balance each other out quite well. I liked them as characters and their flaws and the character growth that we saw in this novel. And then the third book of Emily Henry's is Book Lovers. So what I really enjoyed about this novel was the fact that, like Beach Read, and I didn't mention this in Beach Read, but obviously they focus on the book publishing world. I really love reading stories about characters who are in the book world in some shape or form. So that could be like in Beach Read that they're authors. It could be that they're editors or publishers or they're agents. They're part of the marketing team. They're ghostwriters. Like for me, it could be any part of the book world, and I just love it. I just want to read it, and I usually have a pretty good time with them. And Book Lovers, as you can tell by the title, falls right into that category because we focus on both Nora and Charlie, who both work in the book publishing world. So Nora is a literary agent, and then Charlie is an editor, and they work obviously for two different companies. And Nora, her whole life is books. She loves her job. She loves what she does, and she's so passionate about it and helping out her authors, even if some of her authors are fucking painful, which is what I took away from this book. Her job is her life, and she's very focused on that, and I feel like Emily wrote about that in a really positive light and was kind of like, it's okay for you to be a woman and be successful and be focused on your job. It's not a bad thing. I loved Nora, and she has a little sister called Libby who is married and has children. Libby just wants Nora to take a break, and she convinces her to come on a holiday with her for the entire month of August to a small town called Sunshine Falls in North Carolina. While she's there, Nora cannot help but continually run into Charlie, who she knows from back in the city. He's very brooding, and she doesn't realize this, but his family, he actually grew up in Sunshine Falls, and his parents own a bookstore in this town, and he comes back to help them out. They've never really had very positive interactions because I think Charlie finds Nora a little bit neurotic, and she finds Charlie to be a bit like rude, and he's mostly just brooding and doesn't come off right to people. And they have a really cute, just adorable love story, and I loved it. I loved the story, but I also really liked it, the ending, how it wasn't what you were expecting it to be, but it was still perfect. And then the way she ended it off with the epilogue was great. I just thought it was a beautiful story. I had a great time with this one. And then the fourth book I read by Emily Henry was, of course, Happy Place, which I think is like the fan favorite for a lot of people. And for me, I wasn't that obsessed with it. I still think it's a really great story though. We focus on Harriet and Wynne, who were the perfect couple. They've basically been together since college, and Harriet has friends from college. They're other girls, and they always used to go to one of the girls' like little cottage by a lake, and this girl's parents decide to sell it, so they want to have this one last final trip in the cottage, have a girls' weekend. She's in the city and something goes wrong with Wynne's family, so he has to move back home. He breaks up with her, and they've been broken up for 6 months, and over these 6 months they've not told a single one of their friends that they've broken up. She rocks up at the cottage and her friends are all there, and they surprise her with Wynne, and he's like, I haven't told them, we're not gonna tell them, let's just pretend we're together, because the girl whose family owns the cottage, her and her partner, decide that they're gonna get married there over the week. I didn't really connect to the characters, did struggle with it a little bit. Like, I still think it was a beautiful story, and she really told the story wonderfully, and I was wanting to know what was going on with Harriet and Wynn's stories and also their friends, but I just couldn't truly connect to them in the way that I've connected to some of her other characters. For that is why I didn't really enjoy it as much as her other books. Like, I know people cried hysterically and they could relate to like the anxiety that was displayed in this book. I just didn't connect with that, but I still did enjoy this one. I definitely rated it higher than I probably should have. This is also like a second chance romance. They're forced to face the reasons why the relationship didn't work, and she finally gets an explanation from Wynn as to why he ended the relationship, and you kind of find out whether or not they can make it work. And it was satisfying. We'll just say that. And then the fifth and final Emily Henry book is Funny Story. But yeah, we focus on Daphne and Miles. There are two main characters. However, we do start the story with Daphne explaining how her and her ex-fiance Peter met and how their relationship ended the night of his bucks, because his female best friend decided to tell him that she's in love with him, and he realized he was in love with her and ended the relationship. Miles, who was dating the female best friend Petra, rocks up at Peter and Daphne's house, which is solely in Peter's name, which means that Daphne has to leave, even though she moved to his hometown for him, and she knows no one here, and her family is elsewhere, and she doesn't really have any friends in this town, and she loves being the children's librarian. She moves into Miles's apartment because obviously Petra's moving out of it and moving into the house with Peter. Just their friendship developing. It's also about Daphne finding herself and who she is outside of Peter and making friends, and she realizes that when she gets in a relationship, she just like closes herself off and it's just her and that person, and her friends were Peter's friends. She did have a best friend from college who ended up dating Peter's best mate, and the friend says, I'm not going to pick sides, but the best friend handled it poorly, and I can completely understand why she is upset. Peter and Petra decide to get engaged after a month, and they put their wedding a month after the date that Peter and Daphne were supposed to get married. And then to make things worse, to really rub salt into the wound, they send an invitation to the wedding to both Daphne and Miles. Peter and Petra have to look like the good guys. They are those people that will do anything to make sure that they come off looking good and that they're not the problem and they're not the issue. Can't stand people like that. Just own it when you're a dick. Daphne and Miles have to pretend to be together and fake date, and they love it. They actually have this really beautiful, like, blossoming love story. It was great. I really loved Daphne. I could relate to her on so many levels. I thought this book was fantastic, and I couldn't rate it high enough. And you 100% need to pick it up and read it. Like, it was great. I loved the characters. They were human, they were flawed, and I really loved that Daphne discovered like who she was and where she actually wanted to be in life and where she wanted to do. And I loved that she loved being a children's librarian, and that was kind of the one thing that made her not want to leave. And Miles was just a great dude. I love how he's basically painted out to be a bad guy because he's covered in tattoos, has a beard, and smokes weed. They were fantastic, and I loved it. I loved the side characters. I loved that once she got out of that relationship with Peter, she actually allowed herself to become friends with the other people that she worked with at the library. I thought it was a great book. They are all 5 of Emily Henry's books. I love her stories. That's why I don't think she's overhyped. That's why I think she's great. So let's get into rating the books. What is my least favorite to favorite? I'm going to start with least favorite and go to favorite. I feel like you can probably guess the rankings a little bit. I won't lie, Funny Story has changed like my rankings and what I thought was my favorite, but when I'm sitting here talking about the books and thinking about the characters, and some books stick with you and some books don't. So in 5th place, we have, which is, I mean, I don't feel like this is going to surprise anyone based off what I said, is Beach Read. It was my first book I read of hers. I rated it higher than I should have. There was just things missing from this story for me. And like I said, I've read other books that did what this one did, and I just think that they did that concept better. Wasn't a huge fan of the characters or the side characters, and at times I did find it a little boring. That's why it's sitting here at 5th place. I'm going to say that this is probably 3.5 to 4 stars, if I'm being honest. I think I rated it like 4.5 or 5 stars because everyone was obsessed with it and I wanted to like it. I just didn't. I know that this is one of people's favorite books by her. I don't really understand why, because I didn't take from it what everyone else took from it and I couldn't connect to the characters. This next one may, like, I think it'll like surprise surprise people that I'm putting it in this position, but like, I think when you think about what I said about all of the books, like you won't be surprised that I have placed it here, but people who really love this book will probably be surprised. But in fourth place, for me, it's Happy Place. I just did not take away from this book what everyone else took away from this book. Last year when it came out and I read it, I rated it 5 stars. It is not a 5-star read for me. But everyone was like, I cried in this book. Like I was seen in this book. Like I cried because the things that the characters were thinking and saying is experiences that I have had and that I've lived through. And like, that's fantastic. And I love that for you guys, but I just didn't have that experience with it. I couldn't really connect or relate to the characters in that sense. The book wasn't as good for me as the other books were. This book actually made me worried that Emily Henry and I were not on the same page anymore and I may need to find a new favorite author. It's fine because your favorite author is going to bring out books that you just don't love as much as the other books of theirs you've read, and that's okay. And this one is just a 4-star read for me, and if it's your favorite, that's great and I love that for you, but I just didn't connect to it and enjoy it in the same way that other people have, and that is why it is in 4th place. It's still good, but it's just not as good as the other 3 books that I'm putting here, and I'm sorry if that upsets people. And then in 3rd place, we have People We Meet on Vacation, or You and Me on Vacation, whatever the hell you want to call this one. I feel like this is probably her least favorite that I can kind of see from most people. They just didn't really connect with this one, and I don't know why not. Like when I read Beach Read and then I read this one, I was like, how the hell do people like Beach Read more than this book? This for me was fantastic. I loved the flashbacks. I loved the way it was weaved in. I wanted to know more. I wanted to know what happened because I guessed, I thought I knew what would happen, but I just wanted confirmation of that is what happened that I thought, and that they were gonna get together. And it was just, everything about this was satisfying for me, and I couldn't put the book down because I wanted to know more, because you'd get the little tidbits and then you just wanted to know more and find out more, and that's why this one's 3rd for me. This for me, I would say is a 4.5-star read. Nearly 5 stars. So that's kind of where I am with this one. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was great. And then I've been going back and forth on this, but after sitting here and just discussing both of these books, I think my number 1 book has changed. That does surprise me, but like in a good way. But in 2nd place, we do have Book Lovers. This was my favorite book of hers since it came out. I just loved everything about this book. I love Charlie. I love Nora. I loved it being in the book publishing world. I loved how career focused Nora is, because I feel like it's very rarely is that celebrated for women to be like that. And it was nice to read a book that just so like openly put it out there. This book was everything for me and I loved it, and it was my favorite book for like a really long time. It was beautiful. For me, this is a 5-star read, and I'm maintaining the 5 stars. I think it is deserving of the 5 stars that I gave it. I think that was a legitimate, honest reflection of how I felt about this book. It was a 5-star read for me, and I'm okay with maintaining that. And then my number 1 favorite Emily Henry book is Funny Story. This is a 5-star read for me. It's one of the 5-star reads for this year. I just, like I said, I really connected to Daphne. I could see myself in her. I related to her, you know, her struggles with making friends and all of that stuff is stuff that I've struggled with. So like, I felt very seen by this book and the main character, and I loved it. I flew through it. I just thought it was beautiful, and it was such an easy book for me to read. I didn't want to put it down. I kept wanting to read, and I had the best time reading it. And look, at this stage, it is my number 1. It is obviously 5 stars. I'm gonna stick with it. So there we go. Alright guys, so that's my Emily Henry ranking for books. I feel okay with that. Like, I feel happy with where I've ranked the books. Let me know down in the comments below as well. If you're able to rank Emily Henry's books, do you have a favorite to least favorite? Can you do it? I know it's hard for your favorite author, but I just had to be honest with myself, and that's where I am. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. If there is an author that you would like me to do a video on in this style, please let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you next week for another video. Bye!